It's
Hi,
Wally.
how's everybody doing today? I'm here with Jason again.
Hello.
Another episode of A Couple of Friends with No Class.
Yeah.
Giving you a little bit of a special episode today.
Episode 3 of our unintentional trilogy.
Exactly. We did not intend on doing the weird stories of America, but kind of came out that way. We started off with conspiracy theories. We did some personal paranormal type crap.
Yeah.
And now we're on to something that's a little more personal to me and Jason.
A little bit more specific. A little mixture of both conspiracies and ghosts.
A little bit up on top of it. So, for those of people who don't know, we're from a small... Well, you're in the same area as me.
Same area, relatively.
We're from a small corner of Massachusetts called the South Shore, which encompasses pretty much everything south of Boston, just short of Cape Cod. And it's pretty much a combination of farm towns and stowaway communities that travel to the city every day. So there's really not much that goes on out there. And when something does happen, we get pretty hyped up about it. What we're going to be talking about today is something called the Bridgewater Triangle, okay? And now this is kind of one of those things that's danced around a lot. If you know about it, you know about it. If you don't, it's not something people really get into. For those of the people who are interested in cryptozoology, paranormal activity, anything like that, or if you just live in the area of Massachusetts, this is probably something you've heard about once or twice. And in my opinion, I think there are 2 or 3 major groups of people. I'm going to go with 2 groups of people for safe explaining. You're a pure skeptic or you're a sole believer. And I don't think there's any in between. You got to realize people who have not had these experiences, it's very difficult to explain for a couple of reasons. One, you sound psychotic, and for good reason, you probably are.
Yeah.
And 2, it's very weird to talk about because it's one of those things what happened? Oh, no, it didn't. Well, then I have these people who say it does. Well, then you're all psychotic. I mean,
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. It's
I guess I kind of fall into the spot where it's I'll go to a haunt, a lot of buildings are advertised oh, this building is haunted, there's ghosts in here,
Right.
And so it's I'll go there and be oh, scared,
no, scared. Yeah.
But I kind of feel like it's just by the fact that people say this house is haunted, expect something.
Right.
And so you're oh, but then I happen to watch a lot of let's go to this house, overnight challenge, some spirit boxes and
it's also entertaining.
It's very entertaining because often if they get something you're ooh, and often those people just kind of just enjoy.
Yeah, I think part of the fun of it is people try and piece it together with their minds.
Yeah.
Oh, what did I just see? Okay, now what's the alternative? Yeah. Why did this happen? How did it happen?
Commentary is pretty cool.
Right, exactly. I think that's the big thing. It's well, here's maybe the science behind it, and here's why I think it's wrong. That's what I like about it is the back and forth. Maybe I should go to law school. I don't know, but that always interested me. So the Bridgewater Triangle, in a nutshell, comes down to a small area that actually Jason's hometown is in. Mine's on the borderline of it. It's about 200 square miles. So it touches off in the town of Abington, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. Then it comes down to Freetown, which is probably closer to Fall River-ish. And then Rehoboth, which is essentially Rhode Island. It almost touches into Rhode Island.
This may sound like a stupid question, but is Bridgewater in the Bridgewater Triangle?
Believe it or not, no.
Oh.
So the town, there are 3 Bridgewaters, Massachusetts. There's Bridgewater, West Bridgewater, and East Bridgewater.
That's right.
And believe it or not, it doesn't work the way you think it would, where it'd be Bridgewater's a main pinnacle town, and then underneath it are the 2 towns. It doesn't work that way. The way that the 3 towns work is that there's Bridgewater on the right-hand side, closer towards Plymouth, and then it just cuts in a straight line.
Oh, it's longer than I thought it was.
It is. Bridgewater, Raynham, the 2 towns, very large.
I'm looking at the picture of the triangle. It's pretty. I thought it'd be more equilateral triangle. It is.
No, it's very slanted.
It's quite isosceles. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's pretty. If you guys want to look up the Bridgewater Triangle, you find a map.
I'm not.
You're
I'm next to it.
Oh, are you? I thought you were oh, you have you're touching it. I think.
Yeah, I'm touching it.
So
whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah, not important to the story.
There are very few towns that are inside, fully encapsulated in it.
It's towns.
Because most of these towns are very large. There are not really any small towns around us. Maybe Avon and Stoughton, but they're really not that small. You know what I mean? They don't really encompass the inside of it. And then the other thing that's important to note while I was doing my research on this and read some things was that this isn't purely the triangle. Mm-hmm. There are people who report this in a pulsing fashion. So there's a very large base of similar activity, all this stuff that happens in the Cape, Cape Cod. If you couldn't tell by the accent, Cape Cod, Quad. We're gonna make that a T-shirt, Cape Cod, CAWD. If you didn't know this, it's a pulsing area. So it kind of comes in large focuses. And then again, in the western part of the state, the Hoosac Tunnel, the Appalachian Trail, there's a lot of stuff out there that, again, has a lot of the same appeal. But we're just going to talk about the 200 square miles that is the Bridgewater Triangle. A little bit of backstory here, save you guys some time if you ever want to look it up. It started in the 1970s, not really started, but the name was coined by Loren Coleman. He's an author from Maine. He has a huge background in this. That's his entire job, is cryptozoology. And it's more, again, he's an author, so it's more of like an entertaining thing, but it's definitely a documentation. And the reason I found this so interesting was that the Bridgewater Triangle is one of the few cases where people are like, this happened, and there's actual documentation of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen, ever. Like, people are like, oh, I saw this. Oh, sure you did. Okay. This is like, there are pictures, there are videos, there are like written news reports. You have journalists who like claim that these things are real. Like Pulitzer Prize winning journalists from news stations. CNN, a CNN anchor, we'll talk about in a minute. CNN anchor who used to work for WHGH7 in Boston in the 90s, with another anchor, claimed that it was 110% actually real. He had their own experience. They documented it. It was a huge thing. I'm going to let you talk a little bit in a second. I don't want to cut you off all day.
No, I'm good with this. I'm good with this Wally lecture. Yeah, you prepared all this information.
There was a documentary that came out in about 2013, 2012. And in our area, that was a huge deal. Because, again, we live in the middle of nowhere, so that really wasn't like when we get recognition at a national level, it's huge. Then a couple years ago, right before COVID, the TV station FX bought the rights, which is owned by Fox, bought the rights to the term and the history of it.
Just there. I just looked it up and I saw it said IMDb.
Yeah. So I don't know whatever happened to it because they own the name to it now and they own the rights. And last I heard, it wasn't in production; it was in designing stage. So I don't know when. I don't know anything about it. Huh?
I said, ooh, I have a plot summary.
You do. I think they. It's supposed to be like, it's obviously fictional.
Yeah.
But it like follows a couple of kids, in the area, which was interesting because I'm like, oh, these kids are gonna go to like Brockton schools, they're gonna like dealing coke. It's like, oh, here's your weed, Jimmy. Let's go check out the Loch Ness Monster after school.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny.
The cover of the show thing just looks like it should just be like I'm trying to think what it like.
Yeah.
Like what it's screaming at me.
I thought it gave me
just
like,
the fact that I see the words Bridgewater Triangle looks like spooky text.
Tell me that doesn't. Yeah, exactly. Tell me that doesn't give you like Stranger Things vibes.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to place like what it doesn't scream like, oh,
yeah,
I'm scared.
It's
in like Helvetica. Like it's not like in like any like
spooky real font,
blood dripping thing. It's practically in Comics. No, it's not in Comic Sans.
It's not Comic Sans.
I know what Comic Sans looks like, but like it's But I was aiming I was aiming for Times New Roman. Like it just looks like it's just like
Gothic font.
Yeah,
just a regular Gothic font.
Yeah. Like I know what it is. This looks really safe.
Yeah.
It's like
is that the documentary?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So the documentary that came out in 2013.
Yeah, it's like spooky woods.
Right.
Outline of a triangle in red, and the words "the Bridgewater Triangle" in white text, no border, Times New Roman.
Believe it or not, that was
actually
actually
out there. You got an Oscar.
It actually did get nominated for an Oscar.
Documentary crime history.
Yep, it's a pretty
5.3 out of 10.
It was
240 reviews.
Pretty big for the area.
Show me more.
Show me more. When it came out, it was huge for the area, and I do remember being a big economic thing because the guys were from, I believe, the Bridgewaters, and that was like a big thing. One of the guys legitimately said on record, I don't have the quote in front of me, I probably should have, but the guy said directly that going into it, he was a 99% skeptic.
You can watch it on Prime Video.
I've seen it. I've watched it.
Okay,
it's actually very good.
I'm going to make a note of it.
It's only about an hour long.
Sorry, keep going.
He goes into it saying I'm a 99% skeptic, comes out saying I am a 94% skeptic. So there are, again, people are going to look at me like, wow, he made a marginal progress. But I firmly believe, I'm not a huge fan, like I don't like go around and stalk these stories, I don't interview people. To me, it's just entertaining to know that where we're from has some kind of background. You know what I mean?
Add to watch list.
He's going to go home now and watch this tonight.
I got it tagged in my Amazon.
It's definitely, it's a good watch.
I gotta watch it.
It's a good watch. I knew one or two of the people that were in it.
Really?
I was looking through them like, oh my god, you were like my high school algebra teacher.
You knew
like, what the hell?
Oh, okay.
One of the guys worked at one of the baseball facilities with me.
Okay.
So I'm looking at like, oh my god, you're an absolute nut job. Like I didn't know that. And then just touching again down on the list here, some historic landmarks. Now I've been to I think most of these. There are probably one or two I haven't been to. And I can tell you I've never like experienced anything except for one place. And I'll talk about that later. And it wasn't like, oh my god, it's real. It was just like oh, okay. So there are a couple things that you'll hear about when you research this. It's called the Hakamak Swamp. I have one of my best friends is from West Bridgewater, and he lives on the street over from Forest Street. And Forest Street has a rock that they call Solitude Stone or the Suicide Stone, or whatever it is, which is in the Hawkmock Swamp. Now, in the Hawkmock Swamp, it's supposed to be like this hotbed of whatever the hell they can find. And the very basic background to it, because I'm not going to take up the full hour talking about the history of this one swamp, was that during the Prince Phillips War, or King Phillips War, in the 1600s, pilgrims had just migrated further inland from Plymouth to the Bridgewaters. And I think they settled in Raynham first, but either way, that general area. And Hawkmock Swamp was a holy site for the Wampanoag people. And for about, I think it was 10 years the war went on, it was just this absolute bloodbath, and it focused on the Hawkmock Swamp. And Hawkmock translate back from Wampanoag literature to where spirits dwell, or where evil spirits dwell, or something of that nature.
Dun, dun, dun!
We need one of those keyboards. We're going to hire a producer for that keyboard effect.
Well, we have no budget for this podcast.
We have no budget. We have $5 and I have a thing of Pop-Tarts in my room.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a huge thing. I remember going down there a couple times and like looking at it. Basically, the huge thing about Solitude Rock was that they found a dead body next to it of a missing person. And it wasn't like somebody who like died, like, somebody who had gone kidnapped 2 days ago. The person was missing for 5 years. And they found that, which is weird, because if I do my research, all I can find is that West Bridgewater PD finds a body, end of road. And that's like, and I'm paraphrasing, but that's all they have you, is that they find it in the water right next to this thing. And I've seen it. There's like park benches and a plaque and everything there. Like, this is really weird to like idolize a dead body. You know what I mean? Like, they were idolizing a murder site. But okay. And basically what happened was that it was 5 years after this lady died. And they found her body, and it looked like it was yesterday. So people thought she was still alive, but it turns out the cause of death was actually from strangulation, like 3 years prior to that. So they kept her alive, and then killed her years before, and then just dumped the body out of nowhere. So nobody knows how they preserved the body.
So I made a voice in the hallway while I was not laughing.
Right, that's right. I'm not laughing at a dead body that was frozen for you. And somebody in the hallway said, ah! Like, oh, okay, interesting.
Anyway,
we're gonna go back to the podcast.
Spooky ghosts.
Spooky ghost. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty weird. Do you have anything on that? Or?
No, I mean, you mentioning it for the podcast was the first time I have really heard of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of watch the documentary.
You should.
I'm glad to.
Yeah.
No question about that. But yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like, it's interesting. I started to feel like a lot of like something that you talk about. I've done like 4 sentence starters right there, and then abandoned all of them. I think it's cool when like there's like a spooky place of merit closer to us.
Yeah.
Because often they talk about like, oh, we got Clinton Road.
Oh, which actually one of our friends is from.
Yeah, I know.
West
Milford. Might be going there.
Yep, we're gonna go take a road trip and see.
Once again, I make these suggestions while I'm not following through with them. Podcast on the road. And we're capable of doing a podcast in motion.
Yeah, we can. That's true. We might have to.
Yeah.
What if we did like an on-site recording for some of these?
Yeah.
Because you live 15 minutes from a couple of these places.
I do.
So we could like physically go see these things.
I mentioned to you yesterday, but like I enjoy using. A lot of my things I have for recording things like this.
Yeah.
I use for this purpose, and also can be used for other purposes too. Like I mentioned it for the podcast. I ended up turning down some settings from last time I used these microphones because we had peaked them out.
We did.
But if I turn that recorder all the way up in intensity, that's pretty fine audio. Could go back with the headphone and be like, I think someone just said, hello, stick breaking.
Yeah.
So I mean, those things can be used for ghost hunting.
Yes.
So I have this audio recorder. Do that. I mean, I don't have any cameras that go like night vision mode because I have like multiple cameras. Yeah. I got like.
It's not professional.
Yeah, a lot of people. I don't have this either, but like, a lot of people like hunt ghosts with like Xbox Connect.
Right.
Like to look for like.
It's a real thing.
I mean, in house, like like the little tracking dots. I
have seen that actually. Yeah.
It was like I think it was in a Paranormal Activity.
I have seen that.
I don't have one of those, and I could take that out on the thing. But but I watch people do I mentioned earlier, watch people do their ghost hunting videos.
Yeah.
So I remember the tech they're using, and I'm like, I have that. I can make that out of the things that I have.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Yeah,
goes
that's
to the
something we
location.
should layer up.
Yeah, and I do think it'd be interesting. I have no complaint about, our wonderful hosts here in a dorm that's not either one of ours.
That's true.
As we sit here and record this podcast, but I'm totally willing to go and take us on the road, this happens to be a nice place. We know, we can reliably control traffic.
Yes. Yep.
I like fall. I don't know why we said when I said the words on the road earlier just a minute ago. I'm thinking like the scene that's about to come. Today is the 24th of September.
Yeah.
Like as we get into fall and the pumpkin spice
now I know
smell
what you mean.
leaves. I'm just everything kind of turns maroon orange.
Right.
It's
it's pretty nice around us.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty wooded.
I know it's great.
So it's pretty nice.
I'm so fall has a certain smell.
Yeah.
Because fall has a very unique smell to it. I mean, like pumpkin spice. I don't know why it's leaves on the ground.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see campus. It's not we don't have any trees in the quad area, but walking with the crunch of the leaves. It's gonna be nice. And I can just imagine us podcasting on the road at some point in that kind of weather.
Right.
We're sitting I don't know. I'm envisioning, and we're not going I imagine a little rest here, kind of in a mountain rangey kind of area. Both kind of wearing fleece jackets. Yeah. And I'm sitting in camp chairs. I mean, I have a Home Depot bucket. It's that in the middle. Stick the mic on that. We're just kind of sitting there, just
Jason fantasizes about this.
I just often ponder quality flavor.
That'd be actually. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. Honestly, this is a bro date. So we're actually it does sound pretty fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds. I just enjoy hiking in the fall.
Honestly, it's beautiful.
Boy Scouts. So,
yeah.
Yep. Anyway, back to the demons.
Back to the demons. So the Hawkmock Swamp is.
We used that line before, actually.
We used that in the second episode.
We did.
Conspiracies. It's back the paranormal thing. So a lot of these things, the Hawkmark Swamp, that was a huge deal. A lot of people so a couple stories actually about the Hawkmark Swamp.
Yeah,
very quick because I got to keep moving through these.
Yeah.
The Hawkmark Swamp, which is actually the largest swamp in the Northeast, apart from New York City. New York City was built on a large swamp. So this is the largest swamp north of New York City.
Really? Okay.
It is absolutely massive. It's part of the Taunton watershed, which leads out. Eventually, this leads out to the sound of Fall River, the Rhode Island Sound, the outer arm of the Cape. But basically, what it comes down to, people claim the only way to get around there's not really a huge hiking component to it. It's a swamp. You can kayak and canoe and all that. There's a big deal about the guides and everything. And the parts that you can walk through, people have very well documented cases of Bigfoot. People very clearly claim that Bigfoot is real in this area. I'm not a huge Bigfoot believer, but I mean there are videos of this stuff. There are literal photos. There are people who they what they call the roundabout walk on one of the reservoirs in the lake, in the swamp, where you can walk around it, and people see phantom fires on the other end of the lake. Which is a recurring theme throughout most of this. You can find phantom fires everywhere. So one lady, whose name I'm not going to put out here for obvious reasons, if you watch the documentary, you can see it. I don't have her discretion rights. She claims and one night she sees a fire on the other side at 10 o'clock at night. It's getting dark out. She goes, well, that's weird. It's a controlled area. There shouldn't be a fire. Yeah. Walks over to the side to go take a look at it. There's nothing there. There's nothing in the area that says anything fire. She's okay, well, maybe somebody had a lighter or something. Okay, whatever. So she walks back around to this side of the lake and she can see the fire again in the same spot. So it's kind of weird, right?
Interesting.
And she claims that she watched it the whole way through and didn't see it until she turned back around to the side. But I don't know how accurate that is. My buddy who lives in the Hawkmock Swamp, he hunts deer. We're good. He hunts deer. He's a big hunter because he lives in that area. And he claims that he's heard it hunting before. He's a deer stand a few hundred feet or 300 yards from his backyard, because there's nothing in that area. So up in the trees, you can actually hear things that aren't deer. Deer have a very distinct footstep. I've never been hunting, but he tells me that there's a very distinct following footstep because they're 4 feet, like dogs and cats.
Yeah.
Obviously, bipedals, people with 2 feet, don't do that. It's it's slower back and forth on both sides. So he claims that he's heard, and I think he said he saw something out of the but he didn't think of it as Bigfoot, which was interesting to him. So Hawkmark Swamp, English colonizers originally called it the Devil Swamp. There have been well over 100 bodies that have been discovered in the swamp. A lot of killing. And this area that we live in, the suburbs aren't rough, but there are cities that are around us that are pretty Brockton, Taunton, Fall River, that are not great. So I don't want to say it's dangerous. You know what I mean? It's not dangerous. It's just people die. People get murdered. People get kidnapped a lot. More than a regular town. I know that's kind of grim for this podcast, but that's a lot of the times you find these people either in the Charles in the city, on the Cape in the water, or in the swamps, and it's pretty accurate. It's pretty scary.
Kind of thing lighter than that to go for there from.
I do. Dighton Rock. Dighton Rock, which is also in the parameters of the Bridgewater Triangle. Dighton Rock, which is in Dighton, Massachusetts, is a 40-ton boulder, which originally located in the riverbed of the Taunton River in Berkeley. And it's just got some petroglyphs on it, so like hieroglyphs. And nobody can seem to decipher them. On top of them, they are like engraved in them. They do look like they have some people, and then it also looks like some kind of literature component. If you go down there, I've seen it. It's pretty cool. It's inside a shed. It's like a little museum that's like built out. It's kind of like an island. It's very weird to explain, but it's in the Berkeley forest on the Taunton River, which is actually Taunton River is pretty big. I didn't know it was big, but the Taunton River is good size. It sits in this like forest, and right where the seawall ends, the river wall, I guess, ends to the park. It jets out like a peninsula where you can actually like walk around this building. It's a fully enclosed, and inside is this 40-ton boulder. It's got all these hieroglyphs on it and everything. It's pretty cool to look at. Nobody seems to have any idea what it is. There are 4 theories. The Phoenicians, which goes back millennias.
Yeah. The people of nautical trade.
Yeah, exactly. And we're like, well, how the fuck did they get to Boston? There's no evidence that they were here. Unless it was a relocated stone, but it's 40 tons.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was no way to move.
My knowledge of the Phoenicians is that they had like Mediterranean sea level boats.
Yeah.
But
which
like,
we don't have here.
Yeah, which we do not have here.
No.
But like, I mean, they're the Phoenicians. They don't have like a satellite. I don't think the Phoenicians ever had like a satellite, like
They couldn't track it down.
Yeah. Well, no. What I'm always saying is like I'm not sure. I'll have to look at one specifically. I'm not sure if a Phoenician boat is even capable of making an Atlantic crossing. Is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, I know what you mean. Actually.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I'll look up a picture of a Phoenician boat. Keep talking.
The Ancient Phoenicians, which was proposed by Ezra Stiles in the election sermon, which was a pamphlet he wrote in 1783. There are the Portuguese. People think that the Portuguese may have done it when the Portuguese came over. He's going to Syria.
I can't spell it.
No, it's kind of weird to spell.
I still didn't like it.
The Portuguese came over
Phoenician
in the
boat.
early 1900s. People think that they might have done it. But obviously the 1900s, people are well further advanced. That was proposed in 1912, and they really thought that they originally engraved it in the 1500s. Nobody really knows. The Norse people, which was proposed in 1837 by Kenneth Fretter, he was an archaeologist. He was one of the founding fathers of MIT. Claims that the Norse community did it. The Norse, which is like Nordic people. Oh, okay. There's no way in hell that was anyone.
Yeah, I'm showing a picture of the boat.
There's no way in hell that got to
the headline I'm listening to say replica Phoenician boat makes landfall in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, that definitely did not come to time. There's no way that thing would have got eaten alive.
Replica Phoenician ship makes landfall in Fort Lauderdale, Florida after unprecedented 6,000-mile Atlantic voyage.
Yeah, no
This
way.
was written, it says Tuesday, February 4th, 2020 at noon. Time is approximate due to sea and weather conditions.
Sea and weather conditions. Yeah, there's absolutely...
But it's a replica Phoenician boat that happened, a little more than a year ago, which means they had... Oh, you can see it. Look at all this. Once again, I show Wally pictures here, and this is an audio podcast. Look at all like the sonar, radar, GPS tech they have on
Yeah,
top
they definitely
of
had that in the 1500s.
Yeah, so that means they're like, all right, this side, straight ahead. But like, these guys would have been like, let me get out my star checker.
Right, let me check your constellations at 2:30 in the afternoon.
I think we should turn left.
Should turn left now, guys. About 300 miles ago, we should turn left.
It's like the Pilgrims, like, oh, this isn't Jamestown. Where are we?
Where is everyone?
Plymouth?
It's Friday. They all went to the bingo match, Jimmy.
It's not whatever it's called. Not Jamestown.
That was the first settlement in the U.S.
No. I'm thinking of the shoot. I don't remember what the settlement. I probably will as soon as I say this. You're gonna tell me exactly what it is. The one where they all just disappeared. They were in their settlement. I went off to
stop.
Go get stuff from Europe.
Dude, it's in Virginia.
What?
It's in Virginia.
It is in Virginia. Roanoke.
Roanoke! Oh.
When the guy left to go get food, got stuck in the war, came back, and everyone was gone.
Everybody was gone.
Except for the tree and the little festival that had like Croatoa, the local like Native American like people name.
Yeah.
And then they never saw him again.
Right.
But anyway,
and then
where did they all
go? They don't even talk to Americans again.
Yeah.
Yep, that is so weird.
Anyway, okay. And now back to the Bridgewater Triangle, way up north from there.
Way about 2,000 miles.
Yeah. Anyway, so Phoenician ships cannot make Atlantic crossings without special 21st century technology.
No, definitely not. The Norse, which were north of the Vikings, pretty much, definitely didn't come up to Massachusetts. I know they went to northern Maine because they were aiming for Canada. Yeah. Because they shot right across.
And I know they were like in Greenland.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
And that they settled in Greenland.
Yeah.
And they shot down St. John, Newfoundland, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not like anywhere near us. That's like 3,000 miles north of us.
Yeah. That's still a heck of a rock to carry from Greenland.
Right.
Have you done like any I don't know if you had this information in front of you, but like any like mineral testing on it?
They have done it numerous times.
And where do they think it's from?
Taunton, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
It's just regular granite from the New England.
I know, like, deviating from this, but still relevant. Like the Titanic, the regular Titanic underwater.
Yeah.
They obviously, it's not going to be, in Taunton. It's going to be underwater.
Yeah.
But they found like a rock, which sounds stupid. But the rock, the Titanic.
Oh yeah.
They wrecked it, and they found a rock there, and they like geologic tested, like, yep, this rock is from Greenland. So the iceberg that hit it, because it's like a little chunk of ice on the deck.
Yeah.
Left this rock behind because it was in the glacier, the iceberg. And it's like, this rock is from Greenland. So, like, ice from Greenland floats down in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
Titanic sucks. So, they were able to, like, track back the iceberg. That's why I was asking.
Yeah. Interesting. So,
anyway,
Yeah, they did do a lot of carbon dating on it.
It's from Taunton. Okay.
And then, it's literally from the Taunton River. It's from that general area. Because it's granite. Wow. And granite's, pretty much idolized to northeast, the northeast west, hence New England.
A lot of countertops.
A lot of countertops. New Hampshire, the granite state.
Yeah.
Shout out to New Hampshire. If anybody's listening from New Hampshire, you have the ugly stepsister of Massachusetts.
Anyway.
And then Gavin Menzies was a British author and a submarine lieutenant who proposed that the Chinese did it, engraved it in 2002, millennia ago. But there's no evidence of that. So it's pretty weird. And the state park is still there. You can go take a look at it. You can take a look at the rock. There's really no depiction of what's inside of it. You can see it, read all the hieroglyphs and everything. You're never going to know what it is. It just, honest to everybody else, it looks like your ugly cousin's preschool macaroni art.
Like when you're like at a restaurant, scribbling on the placemat?
Exactly. You're just drawing scribbling. It doesn't look like anything. But it's considered a historic register. The other thing is the Freetown Faux River Forest. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It's a little grim. But bear with me, okay? And I've been here. This is where my quote-unquote experience comes from.
You've been warned, listeners.
I have. This is actually pretty grim. So bear with me on this. Freetown Fall River State Forest is in Fall River. And it borders Freetown, Berkeley, and Somerset, which are these little tiny farm towns. Nobody lives in them forever, which is a big, big city for Massachusetts, by Massachusetts standards. So in this river, or this forest... they have found, I think the approximate number is 384 dead bodies since the 70s when it had become a forest. Mm-hmm. For the record, that is about 38% of all dead bodies, all homicides in Massachusetts that have been solved, have been found in Freetown Fall River. It's pretty grim. It is also a hot spot for, and I can't believe I'm saying this, cult activity.
Really?
Very large cults. And we're not talking like, this is my cousin Betty, this is my cousin Jimmy, and these are all my wives. My daughters are also my sisters.
That's why they talk in Massachusetts.
Right, we do talk like this. No, actually, it's more like, get off the fucking road!
Hey, smart pack!
Smart pack! I hate that. I love that ad, but at the same time, I'm like, fuck everybody, the accent. It has a few other big things in there called Profile Rock. I'm going to give it a happier tone for a second. Profile Rock, which is, it's also on the borderline of Dighton. Profile Rock, which looks like, if you've ever heard of Grandfather Mountain, New Hampshire, this is the same thing. It's supposed to look like the Wampanoag or Massasoit. And again, if you're not from the area, Massasoit's an icon in our area. Everybody knows about Massasoit, the school, the region, the parks. There's a picture of it from 1902 that gives you, it's best complexion. I'll actually show it to you, Jason, right here. This is the best you're gonna get. I'm trying to zoom in on it so you can actually see it. It felt
Oh yeah, I've seen that before.
It was pretty weird. So I'm doing my research on this probably about 2 years ago now, or a year. I just got my license. Then probably 2 years ago. And I was
preparing for this podcast for 2 years before we even created it.
This was my life calling for anybody, so I needed people to listen to this.
Really?
Yes. I go down there to go check it out because I'm like, oh, this isn't like part of the Bridgewater Triangle. A couple people have said they've seen fake flyers around there. People have been attacked by dogs in this area.
Would you just fake flyers?
Fake fires.
Oh, fake fires.
They call them ghost fires. So
the lady said, walked away.
Right.
I thought you said fake flyers.
Fake flyers.
They're like advertising like the Renaissance Fair. February 30th, 2021.
King Arthur's Fair, bitch joke.
Haha, get prankarooed. It's like those posters had a little tear right into the bottom. It's like, call this number if you're interested. Just like calls you.
It's a 1-800 number.
Yeah, it's a 1-800 number. Hi, welcome to the Church of Scientology. Okay, so fake fires, not fake flyers.
Yeah, fake fires.
That would the title of the podcast: The Bridgewater Triangle and Fake Flyers.
Fake flyers, yeah. So people claim that they have, and actually this is true. This is where I got my experience. The time I went, I didn't know it had just collapsed. This is no longer in that shape.
I was gonna say, I thought
it's a couple.
Did you take that picture, or that's something you just found?
That's something from 1902.
Oh, okay. You were around.
It's well over 100 years
old.
Yeah. That's on a postcard you can get down there.
I was gonna say, I think I've seen that exact filter.
Yeah, it's actually pretty common. It's when you talk about the forest, that's their logo. I think. I think it's a state forest logo.
I was gonna say, I've seen it somewhere. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you can, and this is my personal experience. When I went down there, and it just caved in that week, and I didn't know that. So I went down with a friend of mine. I'm like, this is weird. It's all blocked off and taped and everything. And you can't get in there. So we actually had to hop a fence, a barbed wire fence, to get into it. I'm like, okay, this is sketchy. We really shouldn't be here.
The following story is not an admission of guilt.
No, it's not an admission of guilt. No.
Trespassing, don't do it.
They're very illegal. We go in there, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my god, what the fuck? I don't see it. This is a joke. And then I did my research when I got back in the car that it collapsed. So I was like, that's kind of weird. And I saw the people that were there. There were other people walking around. I'm like, oh, this is weird. People had to hop the fence to get in here. And I said to my friend, I'm like, Dale, how did these other people get in? It was fenced mostly all the way around. And he goes, there was nobody else there. Like, yeah, there was. There was literally a guy. There was literally.
This is you, right?
Communicated with him.
This is you. This is your story.
This is my story.
Right.
I communicated with him. I said to the guy, I'm like, oh my god, it fell over. He goes, yeah, I saw it on the news. And that was it. And he was standing next to me. Dale, my friend, was sitting next to me.
This is silent paper.
Exactly.
Like a classic, pinnacle of silent. Yeah, you see, silent paper. You see, you were saying all this the other day.
You get some World War II vibes. It was 1932, and the United States was just bombarding Japan. No.
It's been hit due to the war.
There were a lot of things in this area, like the Profile Rock, that are very weird. So my story basically ends off with he tells me in the car that he's like, yeah, there was a guy we passed going in, and it was not the same guy because I remember him. There were other people there. I didn't see him after that, so he tells me that I'm making things up, and I swear to God, this guy was there because there were multiple people there, you know. So I don't know if he was telling me this is bullshit or not, he was fucking with me. But I firmly do believe that there's some interesting component, and people have the same story. People claim that you can actually go there at certain times or be there long enough, and you can see the Wampanoags, what people mistake for a reenactment, and it's actually a legitimate paranormal happening, which is kind of weird.
So a group of ghost Native Americans is doing.
Yeah, because they used to worship this rock. Keep in mind, I showed you that picture. If that looked like that in 1902, and the Wampanoags had that rock in the 1600s, you know what I mean? It was probably still there. And it's not chiseled. They claimed it's not chiseled. They claimed it was natural. Is it? That's got to be bullshit. There's no way. But, I firmly do believe that, there's something is there. Other things that happen in the Freetown State Forest, there's a lot of crime in Fall River. And it extends out to these towns or in the areas around it because there's really nothing in the suburbs of Fall River. There's really nothing in Fall River anyways. But the Freetown State Forest is the hot spot. The Hawkmark Swamp might have the most well-documented, but the Freetown State Forest is the most eerie. There's a lot of cults. I told you that earlier. There have been numerous cult arrests in the area. There have been, and this is true, this might get rated R for the podcast, but there have been cow mutilations in there. Yeah, it's pretty disturbing. There's been human blood discovered on pentagrams.
We're not going to demonology woods.
We are not, no. In 1978, the body of Marilu Aruda, which was a 15-year-old cheerleader from the town of Raynham. Raynham's got a lot of stuff. We'll talk about Raynham in a minute. Was discovered in September. Was discovered tied to a tree. James M. Cater of Brockton, which is the big city in our area, was convicted of kidnapping in 1967, and they convicted him again in 79. And they later acquitted him. It wasn't him. And they eventually overturned the verdict, like I said. I'm reading it from a paper here. Then it got overturned again. He was convicted again in 92, and then they attempted it with a mistrial. And at that point, they said, we've tried this 4 times, and said, screw it. And they just held him in prison on the guilty conscience. And he died in 2006. So that was a huge deal. They associated that the kidnapping was part of satanic worshiping, and it wasn't. And that's kind of like a big misconception. And that's in the documentary, is there's a huge misconception that this girl that was kidnapped and tied to a tree was part of the kidnapping, or part of the cult work, and there's not. But in 1992, and I had to do some deep digging for this, so anybody who listens to this, just know that I have a criminal justice minor, and I'm putting it to good friggin' work, okay? I did some very deep digging and had to go through a lot of archives to find this. This news article from WHGH7, which was a local news station in Boston, cut off a couple years ago, reported that in 92 there were cows that were mutilated in the forest. Now, have you ever been to this forest?
I don't think so.
It's tough to get in there. There are, like, obviously it's like people live in the forest, like it's open air. But the tourist sections are very well heavily guarded. Forest rangers, National Park Service. It's very heavily protected. So you don't just walk in there with cows and nobody notices. However, these people somehow freaking did. So they took cows in there and they apparently just sliced them out like butchers, and worshipped them as a satanic thing.
Nice.
It's pretty rough. There's a lot of satanic cult work in this forest. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty dark and depressing. But 3 more murders were discovered subsequently in 1987. A transient drifter mistaken for an undercover cop was murdered in the forest. 2001, 2 men were shot to death on Bell Rock Road. I have a story about that, which runs through the forest connecting Assonet and Fall River. 2 assaults were reported by a Fall River man in 91 and a teenager from New Bedford in 98. People get people get kidnapped down there, relocated down there. Pick them up, put them out somewhere. There's a lot of kitty crime down there. You can fill in what that means by yourself. A lot of hazardous waste dumping. There are a lot of hazmat sites down there. A lot of abandoned dogs. Very aggressive abandoned dogs. In your hometown, actually, I'm not going to say your town's name. In your hometown, in 1989, there was a lady who reported 2 3-headed dogs in the area. Yeah. Do you know where, I believe it's Hill Street is?
I think so.
Right on Hill Street.
Hill Street in town?
In your hometown, yes. I'm not going to obviously say your hometown.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Yep, 3-headed dogs. And a lady on, I think that same area, claimed that they saw a mutilated sheep walking around. It was pretty interesting. In May 2016, wire cables are found stretched across recreational trails, which...
Where's this forest again?
This is Fall River. Fall River,
right.
Freetown, Assonet, that general area. Now, as an electrician, this stuff, those wires don't just fall. These wires are about literally the thickness of your foot. So they don't just fall. People have to cut these and put them across the road. It's very heavy off-roading. So it's there to piss you off, pretty much. There to kill you, honestly. There's a guy in the documentary that you'll hear from, and I didn't really talk about this. I didn't really want to, but I'll throw it in there. They're called pukwudgies, which is kind of a weird word. It's a Native American word, and they're essentially these furry hedgehogs in real life size. That apparently follow the Grim Reaper around. If you see him, it's usually preceded by death. That's actually pretty well documented, fun fact. Most people who claim to be walking around Norton, Raynham, Bridgewater, Stoughton, there's one in Stoughton, Easton, that's a pretty big deal. They claim to see pukwudgies, which are essentially 4-foot tall little furry things. It's pretty interesting. I'm not going to go into it because that's obviously a mythical thing. Yeah. But if you want to look that up, you can. It'll be in the documentary. It's pretty fucked up. It's pretty weird. It kind of looks like Bigfoot, only shorter. So let me tell you my story about Bell Rock Road. I obviously drive a very large pickup truck. You've seen my truck. You've been in my truck. One story I like to share a lot is I'm from Stoughton, Massachusetts, which is a little tiny farm town. Next to it is Easton, Massachusetts, which isn't really as small. It's bigger in size, but smaller in population. And it's got a couple of big roads, like 138. Do you know where the post office is on 138 by Stonehill College? Big green building.
I think so, yeah.
A guy in 1974, when it used to be Alberto's Steakhouse, claimed that there was a UFO that went right over the building and like hovered there for a minute. He went back in 2002 and it happened to him again. Now it's a post office.
When was he the first time?
1978. 1978. So, and then 2002 it happened again. Those two reporters I mentioned probably about 40 minutes ago now.
Yeah, the CNN,
The two guys, one of them was a CNN reporter, WHDH Steve Scabarcia. He was a bigwig at WHDH Boston, or WCVV Boston, excuse me, when I was there for a while. He worked for both. And then he went to CNN for a couple of years. And now keep in mind, this is a national reporter. Obviously, he's not some hack who's got a degree from a community college. He's a national reporter, you know?
Yeah.
And he claims he was with another one of his reporters on 138 in Raynham by the dog track, which I travel every day, or I did when I was home, and this scares me. Because he claims that once, at one separate occasion, there was a UFO that paused overhead in a triangular form. He's a former Air Force pilot. And he obviously would know the clearance-wise that is this one of our planes? This is not one of our planes. It went over their head and it just went away. Now, that area, not very big for Logan Airport, which is the main airport in Boston. Not big for landing zones there. It's not. So nobody really ever crack up to what that was. That random dog track, I highly recommend going to. We're going to bring producer Nacho with us. Because behind it there are railroad tracks, freight train tracks, and people have been murdered down there. There are all these ancient stories to it. There were all these, like, people claim to see, like, UFOs, people walking down the tracks. It's very creepy.
It's an active train track? Or like...
It's an active train track, yeah. But it's, like, it's not like a tunnel thing. It's, like, obviously it's in the woods. It's pretty wide. But there's no protection to it. There's no fence or anything, which is kind of weird.
I mean, it's a freight line. It probably doesn't have...
Yeah, but, you know, they still want to protect their lines.
Oh, yeah.
Which was interesting to me. You can just walk down them, right behind the Random Dog Track. Random Dog Track used to be a huge gang thing, huge gang hangout. Huge for the mob. Boston used to have an absolutely massive mob. Used to have an absolutely massive mafia. So it was huge for them. There's some definite history behind that. But the Fall River State Forest, this is like my huge point that I really wanted to capitalize on. I know I keep going back and forth to it. Bell Rock Road. You can actually go down. I drive a very large truck, like a pickup truck, for work reasons. And I decided I want to go off-roading one of these days with a couple of my buddies. We all drive pickups. So we go down to this road, right? Because we found it on like YouTube or something. I don't know. I think we Googled off-roading spots and this came up. And we go down here, and first off, it comes from straight pavement. There's one house, and this is true. I measured this, Jason. There's one house every 2.5 miles. It is absolutely mortifying. It is a hike to get to. There's no lights. You're in the middle of nowhere. You can stop the car and not even hear cicadas. I mean, it's absolutely terrifying. You pass one final house on the right-hand side, and at the end of literally this house's property line, it goes from asphalt to a 2-foot drop to straight bare dirt.
Really?
It's mortifying. And of course, I didn't know that the first time, so I went flying through it at 10:30 at night. I went literally at 30 miles an hour down this road into a ditch. And I slammed my brakes and I like whiplash, and I had to like get one of my friends to like tow me out with his car because I didn't know this. It's fucked. This road, they found a dead body on in 2001. Actually, I lied. They found 2 dead bodies on there on Bell Rock Road in 2001. 2 men were found fatally shot on Bell Rock Road, which connects Assonet, Fall River, and Freetown. So it was kind of a big deal. I remember going down there and looking through, and it wasn't like, oh, this is like creepy. And then the further in you get, it splits. It like forks. So the further you go, the more like you find, and it goes for miles, dude. You can go all the way up to like the bridge with this. It's awful. And then it's right on the reservoir too. So of course I went home and did my research. I'm like, oh, that's kind of creepy. There are a lot of like pretty bad sightings down there, like a lot of pretty big things. And that's really probably the big one. So Fall River State Forest has a huge, again, Native American thing to it. We talked about that. We talked about the Hakamak Swamp, Dighton Rock, Profile Rock, Solitude Rock on Forest Street in West Bridgewater, lightly touched on Pukwudgies. And the last thing I want to say is that this is not a really huge, well-known thing where we're from, is it?
No.
You don't really hear about it.
Like I said, first time I heard about the Bridgewater Triangle, just, you're like, hey, let's talk about this on the podcast. Make us,
Yeah.
the third part of our unintentional trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna part 1, 2, and 3 honorably. It was. I remember hearing about it when I was a kid, and it's like, oh, there's no way this is real. And my town doesn't even fall in it; it's just borderlines to it.
Yeah. Because we don't have a lot of big haunty, spooky things, and we did a trip. I'll make this quick because we're getting close to our time.
Do you think?
A field trip in 3rd grade, right? Mm-hmm. Where bringing us to the spooky place, the spooky historical places of town. Mm-hmm. One of which was in the parking lot of the school.
Oh.
They had this thing right in the parking lot of the school. It's like a bus loop, right?
Yeah.
Right in the middle of this bus loop, in the middle of the donut. No, it's not called a donut, but that's kind of how donut. There's this little grove of trees. This thing called the Devil's Rock.
I've heard of that. That's actually on this list.
Is it? All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So before we got on the buses to leave the school, we walked to that place. It's this. I don't know what you're about to look up. I can do it. This has been the Wally Lecture podcast, which is perfectly fine. You did your research. Apparently, there's a house there, and I'm trying to remember the exact thing. Once again, this was we're freshmen in college, so this was I was in 3rd grade.
Yes.
But something was happening, and the devil went into this house to go talk to some guy's wife. And the husband came home, and the devil jumped out the window and stepped on this rock with such force he put a hole in it.
Put a footprint in it.
He put a footprint in it. Yeah. Can I look at the? I know what it went away.
Whoa! What the fuck is that?
He clicked by accident. Yeah, there you go. So he put his footprint in this rock.
Yeah.
And so essentially, I believe, I'm 90% sure, or not, 90% sure is what we did. I believe we all single file lined up the grove, looked at the rock. I think we had the option of touching the footprint, which a lot of people did. I know.
Yeah.
And then we got on a bus and went to other places in town. It was in the cemetery to find the oldest gravestone we could. There's one specific little gravestone area that this is information we have about this specific person right here. They were important to something. Oh. Once again, 3rd grade. Don't remember what it was.
Right, of course.
But these are all within town. We didn't go very far.
Yeah.
I went to you mentioned before, King Phillips Cave.
I didn't even mention that in this. Do you mind if I touch that quick?
Oh yeah, sure.
So King Phillips Cave.
I did. You mentioned King Phillips War. That's what you mentioned.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So King Phillips Cave.
King Phillips Cave. You can say everything you want about it.
Yeah.
Been there. Does not look to the hype, but
it's not anywhere near the hype. It's near.
It is a rock leaning on another rock.
Exactly.
It's not even a cave. It's a tube.
Exactly. It's literally a tunnel. Right off of Stone Run Drive on Plain Street near Bay Road. Owned by the Land Preservation Society. It's a public thing owned by the state. Either way.
It's got a nice sign, yeah.
It has a plaque. The cave is named because Metacomet, which was the Morcanoab Sachem, he was King Philip. Is said to have hid here near the end of the war, before meeting his death, the Great Misery of the Swamp in Bristol, Rhode Island, which is not far from producer Nacho. Basically, the paraphrase here, Link Winnicott, Winnicott, whatever the hell it is. I can't speak this. Winnicott, there you go.
I've canoed on that lake. I canoe on that lake.
Do you really?
Yeah, next to the chateau.
So tight. Oh, I didn't know that's what it was on. The chateau?
Yeah.
The chateau. Okay. I love the chateau.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag not sponsored. Unless they'd like to send us money. Or
meal vouchers.
If you'd like to send us chicken parm, we will not say no. Poor college students. So Metacomet was chased back here. The lake was their headquarters, pretty much. They based it out of both the Hawkmock and Winnicott. That was the huge thing. So when they lost the King Philip's War, the Puritans and the Pilgrims tracked back to this little cave, which at the time was probably much bigger. Found him here hiding with his last few people. And then and this is true, they picked him up and they put him in a trolley and they pretty much ran him to Bristol, Rhode Island. And then by Fort McHenry, they decapitated him and put his head in the stake and left it there for 35 years. That's true. Couldn't find the record for that. And that's considered a big deal. That's actually not far from, that's the same forest as Profile Rock, just different ends.
Really?
Yes, that is Fall River State Forest.
Huh?
You never knew that?
No, I did not.
That's the very remote part of it. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So you were in the forest all along.
Oh, great.
You were in the murder forest all along.
Not great.
Uh,
All right, I need to pause and reflect.
yeah, really. We're gonna put Jason in therapy now. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting.
I'm in danger.
There's a lot of things.
I think I may have touched the footprint too. I don't think I should be here right now.
No, you should not. Okay, Nacho, you're the biggest one in the room. Carry him out by force, please. Yeah.
Speaking of producer Nacho, we're gonna, guys. Hope you enjoyed this podcast.
I enjoyed it.
It was pretty fun. Well, the trilogy was unanticipated, but it happened. And it was great.
There's a lot in here that we didn't cover. If there's anything more you'd like to know about it, just look up the Bridgewater Triangle, watch the documentary. There's so much shit you can get from it. Very entertaining. Maybe next time we'll get back on a normal topic.
Do I have stuff like not the information, but just like the headline things, like?
Oh, you want to give me like headline stories?
Yeah, I mean, like, be like, all right, hey, we have, I have some other things listed here, like, this one, we have this one, we have this one, just like, like, here's some other things that are also relevant to this,
Yeah.
Just
so other things that are pretty relevant. Norton police officer, which Norton is touching the Bridgewater Triangle, in 1980 something. That's all I can tell you. It's not being very specific here. In the 1980s, was driving home down a street in Easton. I've been down the street. I forget the name of it. Don't quote me. I'm trying to find it as I speak. Claim to have seen what they call, I know exactly this. I live 2 minutes away from this. On Winter Street in Mansfield, he was heading home towards his home in Easton. He approached a place known locally as Bird Hill. This is Norton Police Sergeant Thomas Downey, who is still sought to this day, 1971. He was suddenly confronted by a tremendous winged creature over 6 feet tall with a wingspan of 12 feet. That was a huge deal. 1976, a huge black killer dog was reported in Abington within Bridgewater. 1993, there was a series of reports of a large light tan cat the size of a Great Dane, which to this day, there is a plaque you can find in Mansfield. It is called the Mansfield Mystery Cat. Every January, spook lights explain elusive balls of lights. You can be seen over the random dog track. We talk about that. 97.
You said January?
Every January. Oh, we're coming up on it, actually.
I was going to say, January's
we'll be home for that.
January's month that's approaching.
That's true. We're going to have to go look for that.
Stay potentially tuned.
Exactly. Stay tuned for an On the Scene podcast. Law enforcement in Bridgewater. Sorry, I just had to get a sip of water.
No problem. Hydration is important.
Hydration is very important. There are police reportings of UFOs. 4 days and 2 nights in Bridgewater in 1976. They were looking for a dog for a giant bear that was 9 feet tall. Even though there were no bears that are native to the area, and no one ever found one, but there were 37, and this is true, 37 documented reports of this bear.
Really?
There are no bears that live anywhere near us. This is just tapping things.
Yeah, I mean, we delve into some big ones pretty in depth.
Oh, there's so much stuff here that we.
Oh yeah. Maybe
maybe
we'll touch back on that if I ever do the.
There's ever any update?
Yeah, any update,
every few
perhaps
years,
even a January visual podcast.
Yeah, every few years somebody comes up with something.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So,
well, for the first time, we have enough planning down and packed to say, thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Tune in next week for What Nacho Do's with our producer Nacho.
Nacho Fuentes has officially decided that he will, and this is true. We had him sign a document and shake hands. We had him pray to God that he was going to do it. It's a huge thing. He said he would be in a podcast next week.
So we're going to talk to Nacho about what he does on a daily basis. Just see what the day in the life of a Nacho is.
First time it will be one of our planned
episodes. We should introduce the podcast for next week, the week before.
Yeah.
But
pretty interesting.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you guys next week. See you later.
Have a good one.